If you're in pink, you're in a very dark pink. The Labour Party seems to think that women are only going to be got with a pink van and a conversation over the kitchen table. Do you sympathise with this?
Not very much. It's rather patronising. It reminds me of an advert that the No campaign ran during the referendum when they featured a woman who said that all of the issues in the referendum were far too complicated. She was too busy making her husband's breakfast, and it got rightly slated. And I think the idea underpinning all of this is that women will only pay attention if there's a pink van or if somebody's making their husband's breakfast, and it's treating women, I think, in a rather patronising fashion.
Nevertheless, it's remarkable that you are a woman First Minister, the first woman First Minister, and we have to get back to Margaret Thatcher to get anybody else at the top of any tree. It's not as good as it might be.
It's nowhere near as good as it might be, and even in the Scottish Parliament, which has got a much better record in terms of women's representation than the House of Commons does, for example, we still got a long, long way to go.
Nevertheless, when it comes to austerity, you're telling Westminster they ought to spend probably another 180 billion. They ought to borrow another 180 billion. Have you been infected by Syriza? I mean, do you think this is a bit of a Greek overspill here?
I think
it's quite a populist thing to be going for.
What I'm putting forward is what I think is a sensible plan in a UK context. A very moderate increase in public spending over each of the next 4 years, which I'm suggesting 0.5% in real terms, would still have the debt and deficit falling as a share of GDP, but would free up resources to protect our public services, to invest in the kind of infrastructure and skills and innovation that will grow the economy faster.
Now, one or other of the unionist parties, Labour or Conservative, will have a larger number of seats, and you'll have to do business with one or other of them. Do you care which one it is?
I won't have any formal or informal arrangement with the Tories. The Tories have been rejected in Scotland for all of my lifetime. They've got one MP in Scotland
Okay,
right now.
that leaves Labour. What will you do with them?
I've said, and I think the SNP's been probably more open than any other party is pre-election about what our approach would be. I think a coalition with Labour would be highly unlikely. An arrangement that saw us work on an issue-by-issue, case-by-case basis, I think is more likely. But I'm not interested in propping up a Labour government that would want to implement Tory policies.
Nevertheless, we're at a point at which, with 87 days to go, perhaps you should be doing some talking, because this will need a lot of work, and there isn't a lot of time after an election.
I've not had any discussions with the Labour Party about arrangements after the election, and I don't anticipate that happening before the election. Let the voters have their say. I'll be arguing in the election that people should vote SNP in Scotland for two reasons. Firstly, and most importantly, so that we have a strong Scottish voice in Westminster, that Scotland's interests are protected, but secondly, so that we can be part of a progressive alliance for change and reform, because the Westminster establishment, in my humble opinion, badly needs to be shaken up and reformed and perhaps given the fright of its life.